So just like I said earlier on, we do record these sessions, so this is our very first meeting together on Monday the 23rd. And we will typically meet twice a week. I realize that this is only an hour and 15 minutes, so I normally try to focus on right to the key points and not spend too much time getting started, so that these sessions are worthwhile for all of you as well. So if at any point you have questions, like I already said, raise your hand. You can even unmute, just shout out. You don't have to wait until the end. If it's something you want to talk in less of a group setting, I'll be around after this session, and I'll also be reachable, of course, through our messaging system and email. But let's make a start. So what I really was hoping to do today, and I believe that you should be seeing the same screen that I'm sharing. What I was hoping to do was to go through really briefly a couple of things to get us started for this semester, and then have a little bit of time if you have any questions. Like I said, I don't expect this session to take the full hour and 15 minutes, but I'm always more than happy to be around in case you have questions afterwards. One of the big things that is important for us is that we are recording attendance. And the attendance is taken in two different ways. It's taken during these live online classes. So this class where we're now all together, even though remotely. And we also take the attendance based on the assignments, exams, and any other things that I have scheduled to you that we complete as part of this course. So what does that mean? What's the implication for you? Really, I'll talk about that in a few moments' time, but what I'd like to do is if you can just type your name to the chat screen that we've got there, and if you have a preferred name that you'd like me to use rather than your name that's recorded on the CAC records, I would also appreciate that. If you're having a hard time finding the chat, that's on the right bottom corner of the screen. You can see those pinkish, or that pink symbol for arrows. If you click on there and share with everyone and just type in your name, I'll take the attendance in that way. If you cannot find your way to enter the attendance, you can do that at the end with me. But that would be a great help, just because, like I said, that we're recording these, and I'll tell you what's the purpose of recording these and so on. Personally, I'm always happy that you join me, but I don't have strong feelings if you're not going to join me. I understand that. I know that there's a lot going on, and like I said, I do always as well record these sessions, so they should be accessible for you at your own time if you cannot make the meeting. So the reason why the attendance matters, it's especially during this first week, but also later on. Attendance plays a role in the federal financial aid. Some students are in the country with visa. Some of our athletes need to make the attendance. There's many reasons, but like I said, I don't really give points for attendance on my classes. I try to make the sessions when we meet worthwhile, that you would show up. If you choose not to show up, personally, I won't mind, but if you do need to make sure that you're meeting the attendance requirement for any other purposes, please try to make sure that you show up. The attendance is probably most important during this first week of classes. And the reason why it might be most important during the first week of classes is that if you don't show up to any of our meetings, or if you do not submit any of the work aligning with those deadlines that we've got scheduled, there's a chance that registry runs an automated process and you get dropped from the class. And that wouldn't be a disaster from my side of the process. I can always, if you contact me later on, I can get you added back to the class, but we need to have a little bit of a chat that you know what's expected in terms of the course. But try to make at least one attendance every week, and if possible, try to make attendance on every day that's been scheduled on the schedule for this class during this first week. This first week is add drop week, and seats sometimes get given away if the free spots appear because someone's been removed from the class. I think now that I've seen you guys posting your names, I really appreciate that. I think I should say a couple of words about myself to give you an idea. I really know that you're not here to learn about me, and I am not very egocentric, so I really would rather not spend too much time talking about me. But I think it's a good idea that I give you a little bit of background, how I ended up doing what I'm doing, and how will that color the course that we're taking. So I go by name Sam simply because it's easier for everyone. Two ways to reach me is either here through the Blackboard messaging system. You're now logged into the Blackboard, and there's a little handy tool for sending messages here. And the reason why I'm asking you to use that is that our accreditation body requires that we record the student communications there. So even if you send me an email, I will probably copy it there, if not immediately, then at some time later on, and you'll get a copy of that and my response again, just because that's something that our accreditation side of the house needs. I'm also happy to make individual time or time for smaller groups if you want to meet at other times than our scheduled times. Because we are still in this kind of a pandemic transition time, I do not hold official office hours in person, but I'm happy to come to any campus if you want to meet in person, or we can do remotely also meetings. And this is all by appointment, so just drop me a message and we'll make that happen if that's something that you feel like. I'm usually here on these our meeting days early, and I also stay behind. So if you do want to chat at one of those times, that's possible as well. I can generate a small breakout session for us. Just to give you an idea what it is that I do, or what I did before I moved into a fully teaching position, my background has been pretty much looking of three vessels of the heart, so coronary arteries. And what you see here on the screen is actually four different imaging modalities of a heart. So you see the big left ventricle, the big thicky wall of the left ventricle, some papillary muscles there in the middle, and a right ventricle on the side of it. We can also see some of the intestines. We can see nicely here the lungs. Chest is going to be somewhere here. So what I've done with MRI and why I ended up working on that is that I've been focusing mainly on assessing that when the damage to the heart muscle is so much that it is no longer worth of operating, because with every invasive procedure there's always risks, and when the damage is not yet that serious and the risk of the damage is still high, that it is worth of doing that kind of an invasive procedure. So basically the traditional, and this is definitely not on the exam, the traditional way how we look at the heart on MRI would show this picture that we see on the right bottom corner. So you'll see there a little elevated tissue region on the paler color. That's a consequence because heart muscle behaves a little differently when there's a heart attack and lack of supply supply of oxygen to the tissue. It shows up as bright signal in MRI due to the water content on the tissue rising, and MRI is excellent for picking up that. But then you'll see these other pictures, especially the T1, T2 pictures, which are different kind of not yet largely used imaging modalities on MRI. So on those, we can actually see more of the risk area, how much of the tissue is likely to get damaged when we do certain computer magic tricks that we need to do. But anyway, so that's how, or what's my background really is in largest or in a really broad review of the medical field and medical research. But I didn't end up doing that just by accident, or I guess I did end up in a weird way by accident. But really the initial career where I was heading to was all to do with conservation and restoration. So preserving old historical objects. You can see the lady looking at the surface of that painting. I'm certain she's doing some sort of a pigment analysis there. And of course, we worked a lot, and I worked a lot with archaeological objects. So I've spent a good amount of my early career in excavation sites, some of them bigger, some of them smaller, as you can see at the right upper corner, a bit of a bigger of a process. But what I ended up working with largely on those sites was with organic material, and especially objects that were attached to human bodies or part of human bodies, and then later on focusing fully on human remains. And that led me then to get into a forensic side of the business. So I've spent some time also on the forensic field, focusing on especially older human remains. Well, pretty soon on that career, I realized that it'd be handy if I could actually I would know something about the human body, so I went to study that. And then I realized that it'd be handy if I could look at those human remains without having to interfere them too much. So say, for example, when you're looking at the mummified body, you don't really want to unwrap that just to have a peek inside, because it's never going to be the same if you wrap it back up again. So that's where the medical imaging side of my career stepped in, and I spent quite a bit of time on that field. And that then allowed me to get into clinical research, and I always enjoy a challenge, and I ended up, like I said, working largely on heart, and heart is a good organ to look at as a challenge on MRI machines, because they take about 3 seconds or so to acquire the kind of images that I'm interested on, and heart doesn't stay still for about 3 seconds. So there's kind of a mismatch there, and we had to figure out ways to work around that. And that's what I've been interested, but I've also been working on clinical research, on pharmacological research, and all that and imaging background that I have led me to, when I first came to America, to work on a private ultrasound imaging school, teaching future radiologists, future ultrasound techs. And as a side gig, I picked up a class by request here at the CAC, and I realized that I really enjoyed that. And this is something that I feel is very rewarding to do. So I'm very glad to be part of the faculty full-time here at the CAC. I still do some other side jobs, but this is really my main focus of things that I do. So that's a really quick talk or idea of who I am and how I ended up doing what I'm doing, I'll try to pull some of those experiences to topics that we'll look at, especially when we talk later on about the forensic uses of DNA technology and so on. But I also know that you guys have a large variety of experiences, so never hesitate to share with the class. Like I said, you can always shout out, unmute yourself, or put the hand up if you want. And I'd love to hear if you have stories to share that relate to the topics that we're going through. The second thing that I wanted to say, or that I wanted us to look at a little bit more, was to do with the meeting times. So we will meet twice a week, each time for hour and 15 minutes. So that's not a super long meeting time that we'll have. But that allows us to cover enough material that we can cover the key points of what needs to be known. However, this is not, of course, the only thing you have to do. There's other work to be done on Blackboard, and there's full-length lectures that I've recorded there as well. You clearly know how to find the Blackboard Collaborate, but just in case if someone is looking this later on a recording, to find the Blackboard Collaborate, you look to the left-hand side of your screen when you land on this course, and you'll notice that there's a symbol for that. And by clicking there, you can join the session. You are also able to look at the recordings later on if something has been recorded that you're interested to check out. I also have provided you, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments' time, a schedule that shows you the meeting times when we're supposed to meet based on the plan. You'll notice that most of those have been highlighted on green. And then there's some that are kind of, there's a strike through line through them. If it's this later one that it's not highlighted and it's kind of a crossed over, that means that I will still be here, but there's likely not going to be new material that we would be covering. For example, here, if we're preparing for taking the exam 2, I would cover all of the material on Monday's session. But if you have any further questions, I can cover the same things again on Wednesday. But really, if no one shows up, then I'm just going to keep the Wednesday session shorter. So you'll notice that there's 2 types of sessions, and it's especially those that are highlighted where we'll be covering new material. In terms of the syllabus, that's probably the most important document that I can recommend for you to have a look of. Syllabus really tries to capture all of the important things that we need to know in terms of this course. And you'll find it right on the landing page for this course on a folder and then on a sub page there. And I really encourage you to have a look through that. For this week, we have syllabus quiz. So I'll ask a couple of questions regarding the syllabus that you should know answers if you've had a look through it. You don't have to memorize it by heart, but just to have a good idea where to find the information on the syllabus. Of course, syllabus is also a document that lives and changes, so there's chance that I'll update it, and whenever I update it, I'll let you guys know, and I also highlight those changes on that document. So here you'll see, I think I've so far gotten to the version 2 on the first day. So if there's any updates, I'll mark them on that syllabus. But I really encourage you to have a look of that. And because of how we run things at the CAC, I'm going to go through a couple of parts of the syllabus that are some important that I want to highlight and some required by the college to be highlighted to you. So first thing is that you should be comfortable with navigating the Blackboard. Blackboard. So since this is a hybrid course where most of the hand-ins, or all of the hand-ins really, are through the Blackboard, there is an expectation that you are comfortable with using Blackboard, which is our learning management system. If you're not comfortable with that, we have a great tool for you to learn about it. And that's this school student-centered hands-on orientation for online learners. And I'll mention that again in a little more detail later on. And that's one of the activities that I'm asking you to do this week, just to familiarize yourself with that tool, so you know how to use Blackboard. The second thing here that I want to mention is to do with communication. And it is college's wish that you would use the Blackboard course message system to contact me, but I always answer to also emails, any other format that you might reach out to me. I'll just copy those messages to the Blackboard. But normally that's probably the quickest place to get hold of me. I know that at the beginning of the semester, students are super busy, and we're busy at this side of the house as well. So there is a chance that I've got still a couple of messages that I'm yet to get back to you. One more thing that I've highlighted here is to do with the office locations. I think I already mentioned about that I do have an office at CAC, but I'm not spending too much time there just yet with the current pandemic going on. I will happily arrange that we can meet somewhere in a socially distanced manner in any of the campuses that we have on the district. If you want to meet in person, or then we can do the office hours remotely. But those are all by appointment, so get hold of me and we'll get those arranged if you want to have one-on-one meeting. One thing that I wanted to add right at the beginning is to do with our textbook. And this is always a topic that I kind of struggle to navigate with. And I'm going to take a break after this just to make sure if you have any further questions about the textbook. But let me try to phrase this in the best possible way, and then you can draw your own conclusions from what I've said. And if you have further questions, I'll be happy to address those. So CAC has a deal with a bookstore. So the bookstores that you'll find on the campus aren't actually run by Central Arizona College. They're a business that's separate from us. But as part of that contract, we always have to recommend to you guys. That's what college expects from the instructors. We have to recommend to you guys that buy the textbook from the bookstore. So that's the official part that I'll tell you. The unofficial part that I'll tell you is that the textbook that we're using on this course, and it's on purpose that we've made a decision to use an OER, so Open Educational Resource textbook. That means that this textbook is available fully free online, and I've added the address on your syllabus where you will find this textbook. You can access it while you're online, or you can download it as a PDF file or many other formats if you have a electronic book reader, or you can just download sections of it. But this is the textbook that we use, and it's part of a bigger initiative that we have going on. We want to make the classes more affordable for students and move to as much towards these open educational resources as possible. And any of the lab materials that we do on this course, I will provide you on Blackboard. So you really have an option. You can buy the textbook or you can use it online. I know some people prefer to have the physical book on hand. And to be honest, the cost that the bookstore is selling this book is not too high. It's really covering the printing costs, but they're not making too much of a profit out of that. But that's for you to make a choice, whatever you want to do. I, in general, recommend when you move ahead in your college career that always check with the instructor that especially during the first days of the course, that what is the textbook and what sort of a textbook they require. The syllabus lists that and the search tool on the bookstore's website, but sometimes there are instructors like myself. I teach many other courses, and on some of those I actually provide enough material that even though textbook is required, you can fully get by without the textbook based on the material that I provide. But that's the unofficial part that I wanted to say here. And at this point, if you have any questions, I'm super happy to answer to those. I'm going to have to jump off the screen so I just see if there's any questions typed in regarding textbook or anything else. If I don't hear or see anything, then I assume that we're good to keep going. One thing that I'll add or I'll share is that bookstore generally, if you haven't started using the book, you haven't highlighted things, they are pretty good about accepting those back as well. So consider that. Of course, if you're planning to continue, and officially, if you're planning to continue in biology, and this is what you're wanting to focus on, that is a textbook that might be worth of. There was a question posted that unofficially we don't need to buy the textbook. For my class, you do not need to have the textbook. You can access it fully online, and I actually provide pretty good lecture notes and pretty good lecture videos. Everything in my exams is exactly from those videos that I provide for you as part of this course. So that's up to you. I'm glad that that clarified it. I know that some instructors might have a different view on that, and I know that they use the same textbook for BIO182, which is more of a kind of surveying the variety of life. So if that's something that you're interested continuing, you might want to consider that then the textbook might be useful. But I don't want you to spend money on anything that you don't absolutely need. So I think that we have a good understanding of that. If there's any questions later on, we'll just tackle those. But I'm glad that that hopefully clarified a little bit. And on a side note, do remember that all of our students at CAC have $100 book scholarship or book gift voucher at the bookstore as well, and you don't have to use it at the book. If there's anything for the book, if there's anything else you want, you can really use it for anything at the bookstore. I'm pretty involved in these kind of other initiatives that we have going on at the college, so you'll probably get updates from me about whenever there's extra funds available. I want my students to always get anything and everything that's available for them. Well, I wanted to say few words about the grading, and that's usually the part that the students are most interested in and that the syllabus really lends itself to in terms of checking out. So the syllabus provides a full breakthrough or full breakout of the how the final grade is counted. So there are assignments this week, but then there's also for every chapter you have homework and you have labs to complete, and all of those add up towards your final grade. In addition to that, we have 4 exams. I generally do not do a final exam. It's just those 4 exams that we complete, and those points all together then define where you end up with your final score. I do offer at the end of the course typically a chance to earn extra credit points if you're kind of on the borderline with the grade where you want to be, but you're not quite yet there. So we'll talk about all of those a little later once that becomes more relevant. I know that students have a lot of questions about exams, so at this point I'll just mention that. We won't go into too much detail, but I know that with the pandemic, there's been many different ways how exams have been taken. much less going into the exam center and taking it there. A lot of these online proctored exams where you're completing your exam in front of a web camera and someone watches it or it gets recorded. I really don't do proctored exams on these online courses. You will simply complete the exam on a blackboard, and the exams have a time limit. So if you would try to cheat, there wouldn't be enough time to find an answer from the textbook for everything. So that's something that hopefully makes you feel a little better, that you don't have to be traveling or dealing with any of that extra stuff to take the exam. The other thing that I hope helps to put your mind at ease in terms of the exams is that, first of all, a large portion of the points for this course comes from your homework. And the other thing is that all of my exams are also open book. So you can use your textbooks, your own notes, whatever, so you feel comfortable taking the exam. However, that's the reason why there is a time limit to the exam. So it doesn't quite become a fully just let's copy it from a book. I do expect you to produce your own answers, so no direct copy pasting. In terms of what I have on this slide, these assignments that we're completing, not only they count towards the grade, they are also used towards the attendance. And we talked about that a little earlier on. So they're another way how college monitors that you're actively participating on the class. Personally, I really am quite flexible about if you miss a deadline on an assignment. I usually accept those late. But that's always case by case. You just contact me and we'll figure it out. The big thing is that during this first week, make sure that you get those done so you don't lose out on your seat on the class once they do the class roster cleanup. I do have this here. This is a little bit like when I was a kid and you give gifts, and I think giving vouchers was one of the popular gifts that, oh, I'll clean the car or I'll wash the car so many times. I always add it to the back of those vouchers. Terms and conditions apply. And that's what I'm going to say here on this thing as well, that terms and conditions apply in sense that there is a chance that our schedule could change. There is a chance that our grade point distribution could change based on various things, including the needs of the class, if we end up finding that we need to do adjustments, or because the world is kind of in an uncertain time with the pandemic. If something changes drastically, we do reserve the right that we might do some adjustments. But this should give you a general idea, so nothing comes as too much of a surprise of how this course maps out. But I just wanted to put it out there. I know that this has been pretty much a monologue of me, but I promise that soon we'll wrap up. But a couple of things, and this is one of the things that the college really emphasizes, that we actually are supposed to read to you out loud. You'll find it on the syllabus, and I know that you're all perfectly capable and good at taking in information. But regardless, since this is an important topic, I want to address it also verbally. So if you have a documented disability, the college is committed to facilitating accommodations to meet your needs. And remember that disabilities are not always visible or concrete things that you might immediately first think. For example, dyslexia would be a disability, and it's something that many people, including myself, when we were younger, did not even realize that we had, and only later on have found out. And I look back and I think that, ooh, I could have saved myself from a lot of trouble, especially in English classes, if I had known that it is just a disability that I'm battling with. It's not just me being careless with the order of the letters. So if you have a documented disability, you should contact the Student Accessibility Services Department, and Cheryl Hernandez there is amazing. She will help you to work through the process and find out how we can help you to succeed, what kind of accommodations we can provide for you to make sure that you can reach your full potential in the classes. Some of the most common accommodations that I see are typically extra time in exams and so on. But that all really goes through the Cheryl's office, so I don't get involved in that. I will not find out why one would have an accommodation. I will simply be notified that there are some changes that we need to do to make sure that this student has a chance to get their show their best skills and best knowledge in my class. If you do go through the accommodation process and you get an accommodation plan, it is still on the student's responsibility to send me a copy of that plan. Cheryl normally helps out with this, but I really encourage you to make sure that you have contacted me. I normally send a message back acknowledging that yes, I have received, and this is I will take those changes into account on our, for example, exam setups and so on, so that you really get the chance to succeed on this class. I don't think that I have anything else to say about accommodations. If you have any questions, Cheryl is a great resource. I'm also happy to answer, but like I said, everything goes through her office. If I have received an accommodation plan for you, I probably haven't yet individually responded to all of you, but I will send a message to you and address that, and we'll come up with a plan to make sure that you can succeed on this class. The other thing that relates to accommodations, as we are living at this weird time, is the COVID. So of course, if you're sick, we want you to focus on getting better. And college has certain things put in place, especially in terms of the classes where we meet in person, but also on these hybrid classes and online classes. If you get sick, we will work with you. We will figure out a way for you to still complete the class and succeed in the class. I'm not expecting that, but there's always a chance if I were to get really sick, then we would have to also do certain changes. But really, all of these go through the same person's office who was responsible for these accommodations that I mentioned earlier on, so Cheryl Hernandez. So if you do have signs and symptoms of COVID, test positive for COVID, or were exposed to COVID, we want you to stay home, make sure that you get well. I will work with you on deadlines and handing in work, as long as you contact me before the deadline has passed. And again, Cheryl is the person to contact for getting the official paperwork processed for that. And the last one, this is again a thing that I have to navigate a little bit in terms of how I phrase things, in light that college expects us to say certain things, and I want to say certain things more than just that. So being pregnant is not a disability, but a high-risk pregnancy would be a disability. In the past, Title IX, which is focused on ensuring that there's no discrimination, for example, based on the sex of an individual, covered the pregnancies and any childcare needs that one may have had because of having a kid. But legislation has changed on that a little. So these days those don't go through Title IX office anymore. They actually go through Cheryl's office as well. And I'm never going to address, even if I saw that someone would be pregnant, that, hey, are you pregnant? Do we need to take that into account? It's up to the student if they feel that that's something that they want to talk with Cheryl, and she'll help you to navigate through the process for that. Same as if you're a new parent and that has effect in terms of childcare needs. We do not want that to hinder your academic chances. So I'll leave it to that, because that's a topic that I'm really best avoiding from exploring too much into it. But keep that on mind. Most of my students are always surprised to find out that we are here to help also on all of those matters. I've mentioned about the schedule, and it's just a couple of things that I want to say more about it. In addition to the syllabus, I provided you the schedule, and on that schedule, really there's listed all the assignments, all of their due dates, all of the meeting times, and all of the exams that we'll be taking as part of this course. Just because the due date is listed on certain date doesn't mean that you couldn't start working on that assignment earlier on. So you can always submit things early on. And typically I open up a lot of the work ahead of the time. So if you know that you're going to have to be traveling or you're not available to complete work on certain days, you can do those ahead of the time. However, I hold back from that during the first week, just because we're still going through this drop-at period. And if you want to work ahead and there's no work published, you can always reach out to me, and I'll be happy to work with you to figure out that you have a chance to get that work in. However, do remember that that was the way how we did the attendance in addition to these live online meetings. So you should make sure that you get one attendance every week. So one way to get that attendance would be by submitting work that's due on that week, and that would count as an attendance. I really don't think that on that schedule there's anything too shocking. We'll talk about, like I said, once we get closer to the exams, about those and so on. But really, this course, I've designed it to be low stress. So I don't want you to worry about memorization of everything. What I want you to worry more about is understanding and finding where you can find the information if you need to find out the details. This course is all about setting you up with the fundamental knowledge of the general biology. So we'll keep things on very general level. Usually the focus is on things that could relate to you if you're, for example, continuing to healthcare fields and so on. But this course is taken for many other reasons as well. And like I said earlier on, the first week is an exception from all of the other due dates. So I really do want you to make sure that you get those assignments in for every day during the first week, just so that your seat on this class doesn't get taken if there's an automated roster cleanup process completed by the registry. And another thing that's on the schedule for this week is completion of the school orientation. So you'll find this school orientation, which is really course on Blackboard put together by our learning technology team. That course goes through some of the key features, tools, ways how you can make most of this learning management system. And you'll find this course when you go to log into your Blackboard, and on that landing page, you choose on the left-hand side the courses, and from there you make sure that you choose the current courses. And under that, you will find the school hands-on orientation. So I'm asking you, as part of this week's activities for one of the days, to work through that. You don't have to send me a copy or any kind of certificate that you get for completing it. You do not have to complete every step of this course if you want for the school hands-on orientation. What I want is for you to feel comfortable that you know how to use Blackboard. So once you feel comfortable, you can tick that box that's in our assignment that acknowledges that you feel good, you know how to use Blackboard, you're good to go. And that's all I need. If you do not feel comfortable using Blackboard, work through this course, the school hands-on orientation. If after that you still feel uncomfortable about using Blackboard, that's the time to reach out to our tutoring centers, our tutors, and so on. Because really on that course, even though we're not super fast-paced, we are moving ahead every week. And if you're having to spend your time fighting with technology, you're probably not going to be able to focus on the actual learning material as much as you should be. So that's all that I have planned for talking in terms of the formalities today. You'll notice that since we have 2 days when we meet every week, typically the first day when we meet, and I've messed up there, I think it's Mondays and Wednesdays, not Tuesdays and Thursdays. So let me change that. So Mondays and Wednesdays. So on first day of the classes that we meet, we go through the lecture material, key points of the content that we're covering, and then on the second day that we meet, we go through the lab material. The idea is that once we have completed everything in the class, you should be able to get the homework done real easy without having to worry about it too much. So I'll set you up with all the knowledge that you need to ace the homework assignments on this course during our meeting times. But like I said, I apologize that I've got those dates wrong there. We're meeting on Mondays and Wednesdays, and those are the ones that, but the same concept remains. So let me just make a note there. And that goes for the earlier slide where I think I had the same error on the days. Next session, so on the Wednesday of this week, we will move on to work through the lab safety, things that you need to know about lab practices. So even though we're online, we are required, and I want you to be set up with skills that you could go to any lab and work there safely and comfortably, knowing what you're doing and succeed on those tasks that you're given. So we are covering that material on our Wednesday session, and that same pattern of lecture on the Mondays and lab on the Wednesdays is largely what we will follow. Sometimes though there will be more material on the lecture, sometimes more material on the lab, and we'll just adjust the sessions as needed. So we might continue a little bit on Wednesday about lecture or other way around. But that's all I had planned for today, what we needed to cover on this session. If you have any questions, I will be around here. If there's anything else I can help you with, I will be here. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you completing the assignments online and then seeing you on Wednesday's session. Okay, thank you. So I will be here, like I said, if you have any questions, but I'll also know that you guys have a lot going on. It's the beginning of the semester, so I won't keep you any longer. We'll finish this session here. Thank you. I hope you have a good night too. Thanks again. Remember that I'm here to help you, so any questions, anything that I can assist with, that's what I'm here for. My goal is to make sure that you can get the grade that you deserve. Excellent. I hope you guys have a good night too. Super.